If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Good day, everyone, as we struggle through and trudge through these cold winter days, certainly somewhat isolated and anxious. That's the psalm we're going to be singing this weekend at our masses. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. I just read an article by Thomas Vandenberg that was very interesting title. The title is "The Virus of Hardened Human Hearts Spreads." So there are two viruses threatening us these days. Certainly the COVID virus, but also the virus of hardened human hearts. The psalmist, of course, sang of it. Jesus always confronted it in his ministry. The article by Vandenberg is about the hardened hearts of people willing to violently destroy one another because of different ideologies. Vandenberg writes of the disregard for our fellow human beings with phrases like, "They don't mean anything to me, so why don't just shoot them?" As helpless as we feel towards the coronavirus, we can also feel pretty helpless towards the virus of hardened human hearts. Yet as we see signs of hope to combat the coronavirus, we must also struggle to confront the hardened hearts all around us. We as a nation and as a people, we are all so much better than that. And Vandenberg makes a good point. He writes that to correct the situation, passing more laws won't help. They won't stop the killing, harassment, or abuse of fellow citizens. Government cannot solve this kind of problem because at its roots, it is about the condition of the human heart. It's the human heart that is in trouble. At the deepest human level, we all are brothers and sisters. And when this is ignored, we easily become indifferent to one another. And thus the violence of January 6th is so real. And Homeland Security this week warning us of future violent attacks makes it even more real and certainly very scary. This is what happens when we fail to respect one another as brothers and sisters, no matter who we are. We are all human beings. And we must learn to dialogue with each other about our differences and compromise. Certainly with the coronavirus, there are many broken hearts, which we are struggling to heal and can be healed. But a hardened heart might be even worse and more difficult to heal. Both the sheer scale of the pandemic and the associated injustices in our world certainly have the capacity to harden our hearts, and we can become overwhelmed and feel helpless. But it doesn't have to be this way. So this weekend, as we hear that psalm sung, let each one of us look at our own heart. What is in my heart today? Am I filled with anger, resentment, revenge, hatred, or indifference? Whatever the feelings might be, let us acknowledge those feelings and struggle to let them go. And if we say that we are Christians and Catholics, we must ask ourselves, are we modeling our lives after this man God, Jesus Christ, who truly wants to heal this hardness and fill our broken hearts with compassion? See, this is how we keep our hearts soft, filling our hearts not with anger or hatred or indifference, but with compassion for each other. 1 Corinthians always reminds us that love always perseveres. So we must struggle these difficult days to not get into that mode of, I don't care, it doesn't matter, it doesn't bother me, whatever. Caring feelings, not angry feelings or indifferent feelings, are a luxury in a world that feels like it's coming undone. And certainly that's what it feels like these days. Our God tells us to care deeply, and not just about ourselves, but about each other. And this is the message of Jesus. We are connected to each other. We all have a hunger for connection, but it can't just be limited. And this hunger for connection is what holds us together. Unfortunately, there are times when people seem so intent on tearing these relationships apart. Again, these days it's easy to feel overwhelmed and lost. It's easy to close ourselves off, harden our hearts. But to avoid this, we must get centered and grounded in the word of the Lord, in the scriptures, in that psalm we sing this weekend, in God's grace, who will help us let go of these negative, angry, bitter feelings that sometimes overwhelm us. And we must come back to ourselves, because we are all good people, people who are centered in caring for one another. And it's this caring that ties us together and makes us caretakers of each other's hearts. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. First, we must listen to the Lord trying to break into our lives. Listen. Secondly, we must reflect what's in our hearts. Thirdly, we must acknowledge that which hardens us. And fourth, we must allow the Lord to enter into our hearts with the Lord's grace to cleanse us and to put compassion in our hearts, not bitterness. It is this intimate relationship with the Lord's grace, that will bring us the healing that we need. And then we can combat both viruses. By softer hearts, we will be able to do all that we can do to take care of each other, to protect each other as brothers and sisters of the same God. So let us all work to stop the spreading of the virus of hardened human hearts. Peace be with all of you. Have a good week, everyone.